Hello friends, welcome back to this channel, and today we will create a game like this. So without further ado, let's get started. As you can see, I have created a new project. The Unity version which I am using is 2018.3. First of all, let's create a asset folder and we will import some asset for this game. These are the asset which I have created. So let's import this to our game. This is a texture sheet. We have to cut this image into individual images, change the texture type to sprite 2D, sprite mode to multiple, hit on sprite editor, hit enable, and let Unity slice this texture sheet for us. Now click on slice and let's see if Unity have done it correctly or not. We have to make some adjustment. Hit on apply, close, and do the same procedure for all the texture sheet. We will slice them to individual images. Now let's create an empty game object for the player. I will name it player. Create a 2D sprite child game object and drag and drop the player sprite to it. Scale it down a little bit. I will scale to 0.1, 0.1, and now add some circle collider to it. I will reduce the radius a little bit and add rigid body to it. I will change collision detection to continuous and interpolate to interpolate. Now let's create a folder for the script. And I will store all the script inside this folder. Create a new script for this. I will name it player. Hit enter and double click to open this in editor. First of all, let's understand what we have to write in this script. The functionality of the player is if we click on the left mouse button or if we tap, the player will jump in a certain X and Y direction with a jump force. So let's write this in script. After opening Visual Studio, let's delete these two packages which we will not use. We will create a vector2 variable for the player jump direction. I will name it jump direction, and we will create a variable of int type. I will name it jump force. I will create a rigid body 2D variable and I will name it RGBD, and I will create a vector2 current speed variable which will show the current velocity of the player. You will understand why I have created this variable. I will create a vector2 variable for the max velocity of the player. I will create a take player input variable. So you will get to know these two variables once we write the code. In the start, let's take the reference of the rigid body 2D component, and inside the update, we have to write if the left mouse button is pressed, then we will add some force to the rigid body. If rigid body dot gravity scale is not equal to 1, means if the gravity is not applying to the rigid body, we will apply gravity to the rigid body. And inside the start method, we will change the gravity applied to the rigid body to 0. Now we have to create a method which will control the velocity of the rigid body, and I will name it control speed. And inside the control speed method, I will take the rigid body velocity into the current speed variable, and if the current speed dot x is not equal to maximum speed, we will apply the max speed dot x value to the current speed dot x. We will do the same thing in the y direction and then assigning the current speed to our rigid body velocity. So let's call this method inside the update. Let's drag and drop this script on player game object. Provide the value in the inspector. I will write 30 and 150 for the jump direction, and jump force is 150, and max speed I will write 2 and 3. We will change this later. So now let's try to run this application and see if the functionality of the player is working or not. I think the jump force is a lot. Let's decrease the jump force. and now it's working in a controlled manner. Inside the inspector, I have provided the value 30 and 150 for the jump direction, and jump force will be 8, and max speed will be 3 for the X and Y. We will tweak these value later. So now let's add some background element. I will create an empty game object and I will rename it to BG, reset the transform, and I will create a new 2D sprite game object for the background and I will rename it to background image. Let's drag and drop the background image. Let's align the background image and change the color a little bit. Now we have to create a new 2D sprite game object. Create an empty game object. I will name it spikes. Below this game object, I will add background spikes and I will scale down a little bit. Align it so that it will show inside the field of view. Now I will duplicate it using Ctrl D and move it in the up direction. I will add a box collider to it so that if player hit these spikes, the player will be dead. And now I will duplicate it and move it in the right hand side. And now we have to create a camera script which will follow this player, and Unity has provided a very good package for this. I will install Cinemachine in this application so that our camera will follow the player. And using Cinemachine you can add a lot of variety in your game. Now import the Cinemachine from package manager. Now after importing, create a 2D Cinemachine camera. Click on Cinemachine and select create 2D camera. It will create a Cinemachine 2D camera for our game. I will create an empty game object and I will name it camera. I will drag and drop these two camera below this game object. We need Cinemachine to follow our player. So I will drag and drop the player transform to the Cinemachine follow field, and Cinemachine is following our player now. We have to make some adjustment in the setting. First of all, we have to make the camera come closer. We will do that by changing the orthographic size. I will change it to 5.44, and we don't want our Cinemachine camera to follow our player in the Y direction. So I will change the dead zone to 1 and change the soft zone height to 2. Now let's try to run the application. The camera is following our player now. So now let's add some obstacle. We will create an empty game object. I will name it obstacle, and inside this empty game object I will create a new game object and I will name it hoop holder. And inside this game object I will create a new 2D sprite for our hoop or circle. Align it a little bit. Now let's create a sorting order. We will create 3 sorting layers, one for the hoop background and one for the player and one for the hoop foreground. And applying this sorting order to these game object, applying hoop background to hoop and applying this sorting layer to hoop and assigning player sorting layer to the player. Now player is showing in between these two images. This is the magic of sorting layer. First of all, let's understand the functionality of the hoop holder. If the player is collide with the edge of the hoop, after that the player cannot give input. And if the player is able to pass through the hoop, the obstacle get destroyed and we will add point to the player. Now add some box collider to the hoop, move it to the left and scale down a little bit. I will scale down to 0.17 in X and 0.08 in Y and offset it to the left direction. I will copy the component value and paste as a new component. Delete the minus sign from the offset and the box collider will move to the right hand side. Let's add one more box collider and this collider will be of trigger type. I will change the size, and if the ball is able to hit this collider, we will destroy the obstacle and give point to the player. Now let's create an empty game object for the bar. I will create a new empty game object which will hold the sprite. Now drag and drop this square sprite inside this and changing the scale a little bit. Now create a new 2D sprite game object for the spikes and drag and drop the spike image. Scale down a little bit. Now duplicate this spike using Ctrl D and change the Y position so that it will look like this. I am not happy with the size, so I will change the size one more time. And I will duplicate it and move it in the Y direction. Now I will add box collider to the bar parent, changing the size of the box collider. Now let's create a new script for the obstacle. Now first understand the functionality of the script. If the player is able to pass through the hoop, then the obstacle get destroyed, else the player will be dead. We have to write this in C#. So open the script. So inside the script, if the player is collided with the obstacle, the game is over. So inside onCollisionEnter method, if the player is collided, we will write some functionality so that the game will be over. We will do that later. And if the player is able to pass through the hoop, we will remove the game object. So now let's drag and drop this script on obstacle game object and create a new script for hoop holder. Open the script for editing. Inside the script, we have to write the functionality that if player is collide with the left and right side, so after that player cannot take input, and if the player is collided with the box collider and which is a trigger collider, we will remove the obstacle. So let's write this in C# and let's change the obstacle name to obstacle holder. Let's create a variable which will take the transform of the obstacle and a bool variable, and inside the onTrigger enter 2D method. If the ball is able to pass through the hoop, user can provide input to the player and we will remove the obstacle game object. And if the player is collided with the left and right box collider, then the player cannot provide the input. So we will change the take player input variable of the player class to true, and inside the player script, if player take input is true, then we will just return from the update. That means we cannot provide further input to the player. Now let's create an animation variable and get the animation component in the start. Now when the play dead method is called, we will play the dead animation and restart the scene. Now let's drag and drop the hoop holder script to our hoop holder game object. Drag and drop the obstacle transform. Assigning the player tag to the player. Now changing some value in the player script and the inspector. And changing the jump direction value. Now let's try to run this application. This is working. Now let's create an obstacle destroy animation. For that, let's duplicate the hoop holder game object and let's create the animation. Create a new folder for the animation and I will name it animation. Hoop will be the name of the animation. Hit on save and now hit on record. When the obstacle is destroyed, we just need to change the alpha value. We have to play this animation when we have to destroy this obstacle. So we have to create a default animation as well, which will change to death animation. when death is triggered. Open Animator and create an empty animation. I will change this to default animation. Now I will create a new trigger and I will name it destroy. Assign this trigger to the animation. We don't need to go back in the idle state. I will delete this in the end. Now open the obstacle holder script and we have to take the reference of the animation so that we can play the animation when we have to destroy the obstacle. So we write a play dead animation method. When this method is called, we just play the destroy animation and destroy the game object after 2 seconds. Now drag and drop the obstacle holder script on obstacle holder game object. Now open the hoop holder script and inside the destroy game object method, we need to take the reference of the obstacle holder class and call that method. Now let's test the application. The animation is working fine. Now let's create the player dead animation as well. Create a new game object. I will name it player dead and creating a new animation. Save it inside the animation folder and I will name it player dead. Now create few 2D sprite game object and drag and drop this image. Change the position and rotation of the game object. I will duplicate it and place it in different direction. Now let's animate. Hit on record. And just change the scale of the game object. This player dead animation is called when the player is dead. So we have to create an idle animation as well. Create an empty animation and I will set it to default. Create a trigger. I will name it dead. And I will assign this trigger to change the animation from idle to the dead. Now inside the player script, inside the player dead method, we will uncomment this code. Now to create the restart method. Now to restart the scene, we will create a game manager which will restart the scene. I will create a new script and I will name it game manager. Open this in editor. Delete the two packages and I will use Unity scene management package. We don't need the update method as well. So inside this game manager, we just have to restart the scene. We do this by providing the build index to the load scene. Now uncomment the restart scene and we have to write restart scene method. First of all, take the reference of the game manager. We do that by using find object of type. Inside the restart scene method, we just call restart scene of the game manager. So now if the player hit these spikes, player will be dead and we will restart the scene. So let's open the obstacle script and inside the all collision enter method, we will call the player dead method of the player script. Now let's duplicate these obstacle and change the y value a little bit. We have to create a game manager game object and so that we can drag and drop the game manager script to it. Now drag and drop the obstacle holder game object to make it a prefab. Game is almost complete. There is only one thing left. Now we have to create an obstacle instantiator which will instantiate the obstacle holder after fixed interval. Now let's create an empty game object. I will name it obstacle instantiator. Let's create an obstacle instantiator script. First of all, let's make some adjustment in obstacle holder prefab. I will create an empty game object and drag and drop the hoop holder game object beneath it. We have to recreate the animation. I have created the obstacle instantiator script. Now let's open it and understand the working of this script. First of all, we have to take the reference of the obstacle game holder so that we can instantiate this game object. And after this, I have created a distance between obstacle, which is of n type. The obstacle game object will instantiate after a certain distance, and that distance is distance between obstacle. And there is an end current obstacle position which will hold the current position of the obstacle. I have also created a vector to min and max y value so that we can change the y value of the hoop. Inside the start, I have called the instantiate obstacle method. Inside this method, I have run a for loop from 0 to 50. We will generate 50 obstacle. First of all, let's add the distance between obstacle to the current obstacle position and instantiate the object at the current obstacle position. The y and z will be 0. Take the reference of that obstacle inside the geo game object and now shows the child position of that transform, which is at first position, and assigning a new vector to position. Now let's drag and drop the obstacle holder game object. An obstacle should instantiate after 5 minutes, and min and max y value of the hoop will be 2 and minus 2. Now the game is almost complete. Let's try to run this application now. Congratulations, you have created a game. And if you have learned anything from this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Thank you so much for watching. Let's see you in the next video.